Is that it? Oh, yeah. Starting down.
Yeah. Yeah. So I
Okay.
just learned Christmas very doesn't have that route.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, she was so young.
All right, I think you're ready? Yeah. Awesome. All right. Good evening, everyone. You guys can take your seats, take your time. On behalf of the Wisconsin Maritime Museum, I would like to thank you all for coming to the last installment of the year of our monthly speaker series, Think and Drink. So Think and Drink is a free event we hold on the first Thursday of every month. Each presentation is based around a yearly theme. So we're able to host this series thanks to a grant from the Green Bay Packers Foundation. So we are very, very grateful for that support. And if you enjoy this program and would like to help us keep these events free and accessible to everyone, please consider supporting the museum by becoming a member or donating. You can come find me afterward if you would like some more information on that. Feel free to get up at any time during the presentation and go to the back and grab yourself another drink. The drink tonight is the South Pole Spritz, which I did taste and is pretty good. So we request that you do hold questions unless William is willing to answer questions throughout the presentation. We do request that you do hold them until the end of the presentation. So the 2025 theme is ice. Ice is a defining feature of maritime history and the history of Wisconsin. And as some of us know very well, there are countless dynamic stories that are frozen in ice that we are still continuing to thaw today. Tonight, we are pleased to welcome William Lindman, whose remarkable life and career has taken him from the banks of the Mississippi River all of the way to the heart of Antarctica. From Eagle Scout, to Peace Corps water sanitation volunteer to chief water operator at the South Pole Station, William's path reflects a deep commitment to exploration and to his community. He now brings that experience to Manitowoc, where he serves as the water production and maintenance foreman at the MPU water treatment plant. So tonight, William will share with us the story of what had led him to Antarctica and what life was like at the bottom of the world, and finally, how that journey brought him here to Manitowoc. All right, so that's enough from me. Please join me in a warm welcome, despite the cold weather, for William Lindman.
All right, thank you so much for allowing me to be here for the Maritime Museum. I never would have thought in my life that I would be giving a presentation in a museum. But it's just amazing to see all of you all here, so many of my friends, co-workers, my family. It's truly amazing to see that you guys are here to support me and that I get to share my experience, my story with you all. So I'd like to start out with a quote from Angel Flonis Harafa. There will always be a reason why you meet people. Either you need them to change your life, or you're the one that will change theirs. I want you guys to think about that for a second, okay? Now, the journey to the end of the world, that's what I call it, a lot of people do, doesn't just start with, I'm going to Antarctica. It started many, many years ago. I first went to Lindenwood University. This is in St. Charles, Missouri. And that's where I studied criminal justice with a legal studies emphasis. I had originally intended on joining the Marine Corps. I was going through ROTC. I wanted to go to officer candidate school. But there was one course I took, and it brought up a Peace Corps situation. And it reminded me of my babysitter, Erica Hogue. She was a Peace Corps volunteer in Sierra Leone back in the 90s. I always thought that'd be amazing to go to Africa, be a Peace Corps volunteer. When I heard about her, or when I heard about this course, heard about the story in this course, I remembered about Erica. I was like, I need to go there. So I kind of stepped back and started looking into joining the United States Peace Corps. It just so happened that Erica was a recruiter for the Peace Corps in Dallas. So I reached out to her on Facebook, and we connected, started talking, and long story short, after like a year of application processes and whatnot, I was accepted, and I served in the U.S. Peace Corps as a water sanitation volunteer in the country of Uganda in Central Africa. During that time, I worked at St. Mary's Seminary in Fort Portal. So here I went from a town of roughly the size of Two Rivers, 12,000 people, to a huge metropolis of 50,000 people. Thinking I was going to be going way off in the bush. No, that's not what happened. I ended up at St. Mary's. I'm extremely thankful for that. I'm not going to go too much into Peace Corps, but I just wanted to add a couple pictures here of some of my counterparts here on the top left. One of my best friends, Brother Eugene. Me giving a presentation on life lessons out in the bush with our lovely, dirty Land Cruiser there. And then one of my favorite activities was going out to the plantation to get matoke for the students. When I came back from the Peace Corps, I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. That was during the Great Recession. The Marine Corps option kind of fell aside. They were downsizing. So I started thinking of what else I could do. A friend of mine put me in touch with another friend, and she said that her dad needed help at the water treatment plant in Cape Girardeau, which was very similar to Manitowoc. My hometown of Jackson was right next to Cape Girardeau, just like Two Rivers and Manitowoc. So I started working at the water plant there. I started as summer help, and eventually the full-time position opened up. So I started as a plant maintenance mechanic, turning into a relief operator. I spent 4 years there in Southeast Missouri. That time there was like, everything was comfortable. Everything was good. I was heavily involved in a couple different organizations in the community. I had a girlfriend at the time, a couple of years, but I felt like I wasn't doing enough. That relationship ended, and at that point, I was kind of like, I need to go do something else. One night, I was sitting in my apartment working on updating my resume, applying for jobs. I was like, I can go wherever I want. I'm 20, in my mid-20s. I'll go wherever I want in the world right now. Netflix was on in the background, and there was a documentary that came on called A Year on Ice. So I started watching it. It was about the McMurdo Station, the largest base in Antarctica. It's a U.S. base. I was thinking, well, if there's 1,200 people there, they need clean water. Why not look into seeing if they need a water operator? So I quick Google search, and all of a sudden, I'm sending in my application. When I first sent in the application, when I first turned in my application, I got a call a day or two later. They're like, hey, if you're serious about this, we need you there in like 2 weeks. So we have a lot to do. So that a lot to do really was a lot to do. I ended up flying out to Denver to the Antarctica, United States Antarctica Research Program headquarters, and I went through a full medical evaluation. That was a very in-depth evaluation because they need to know that if they send you there when you're there for winter, that nothing's going to happen. You're fit. They don't have to evacuate you. But then there was a psychological evaluation as well. That part was very unique. I've never been through anything like that since then. What it consisted of was I went into this room with a bunch of other people, and they weren't necessarily part of the program, but it was like an 800 question test, all bubble sheet, but there was no right answers. The questions were, would you like to be a painter, a news reporter, a plumber, or an engineer? I'm like, well, I don't want to be any of those because I want to be this. So but 800 questions of this. Eventually, I got pulled out of the room. This guy just walked in the room. He's like, William, come with me. And I go off into this psychologist room, and he starts asking me these questions. And the questions, I won't repeat them because they're very awkward. But he was trying to get a rise out of me. He was kind of trying to see how I would react to these awkward questions. And I kept on laughing, and eventually he sent me back to my test. So now I have 300 questions left. I'm like, what in the heck just happened? I don't know. So I finish. I go back to my hotel room. The next day, I go into the headquarters for a panel discussion or a panel interview. My panel interview went really well. At the end, they're like, hey, we're so glad you passed that test on the first time. Like, wait a minute, the first time? Like, yeah, some people have to take it a couple times before they pass. Wow, okay, well, yeah, I guess that speaks to the truth. So I come home to Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and I'm just getting rid of all my stuff. Luckily, my parents lived in Jackson still, so I was able to put some stuff in their garage or in my old bedroom. I gave so much stuff away, and then eventually my life was consolidated into a backpack again, much like I did when I was in the Peace Corps, where I had a couple backpacks. So flew into Amundsen-Scott South Pole Station. Now to get there, it's no easy feat. I went from Missouri down to Dallas. From Dallas, I flew to Sydney. Now at the time, that was the longest continuous flight in the world. I get to Sydney, I flew to Christchurch, New Zealand. From Christchurch, that's where they gave us all our gear, and we went on to McMurdo Station. Now, the funny thing is, when we got to McMurdo Station, we were quarantined because we were the healthy ones. There was a pink eye outbreak in the station. So they didn't want us taking pink eye down to the South Pole. So we were quarantined and then quickly escorted out of the base and then flew another 8 hours to the South Pole Station. Now at the South Pole, I was the water operator there. As you can tell, I was water sanitation in Uganda. I was in water in Cape Girardeau, and now I was going to be the water operator at Amundsen-Scott South Pole Station. So just real briefly, I'll talk a little bit about the technicalities of what I was doing. I was in charge of the water. I also had added responsibilities of maintaining the Cat diesel generators there. So much like everywhere in the United States, every day we're doing tests on the water to make sure it's safe to drink. So I'm taking temperatures, pH, chlorine residuals. Weekly, I'd be taking lead and copper samples, checking the hardness, the alkalinity. All those results from the power plants and the water plants were all entered into this Excel spreadsheet. And I got to learn so much about Excel and how to use graphs and whatnot. It was good. And I just did it because I had so much free time. Monthly, I had to take a BACT. That's called a bacteriological sample. Now, that's something we do here in Manitowoc. Everyone's required to do it throughout the United States. And what we're testing for is coliform and E. coli. You guys are all aware of what E. coli is. Now, coliform is a bacteria that is present if E. coli is present. E. coli cannot be present without coliform. So we're testing for coliform. So that indicates if there's an issue with your water. Now, I put in there that it was awkward because how do I know that my tests are actually good if I don't have a bad sample? Now, luckily here in Manitowoc, we can just go down to the wastewater plant, get a sample from their influent water, test it against all of our equipment, and we know that yes, our equipment is working properly. All our samples are safe. Down there, I didn't have a wastewater plant, so instead I had to go find a toilet that might have had a smear or two on it and collect a sample and plant that sample. Annually, then a team would come down and conduct a bunch of other tests that are required. It was mostly through the state of Colorado, since that's where the headquarters were. So the plant schematics, I have this rod well here. I'll get into that in a second. The water came in through these limestone contactors. Those contactors help control the pH level. They went through some filters and then went through a chlorine contact chamber. It would then go into the storage tanks and then go into the station itself. Now, this is like the most simple schematic possible. It's actually a lot more intricate than that. But I'd like to talk about the Rodriguez well. So the Rodriguez well was first constructed in the 1960s. Essentially what it is, it kind of looks like a light bulb upside down. So what it does is we have pipes that are going down into this well, and there's water, however many feet up. That water is pumped into the water plant, and any excess water is heated and then sent back into the Rodriguez well. So water is constantly being circulated the whole time. Now, when you pump warm water into an ice cavern, water is going to melt and you're going to gain more and more water. Eventually, you can't melt any more ice, and that well will have to be abandoned and a new one will be made. So yeah, there was only one of these in the world, and that was the one that we were getting our drinking water from. The water that we were drinking, that I was cleaning, was estimated to be about 2,000 years old. So we called that our Jesus water. And I swear that was like the best water I've ever had in my life. So this is a picture of one of the ice tunnels that we have. You can see these large pipes here on the right. Those are actually the recirculation lines. So this is about 75 feet underground. When you would go in there, you would have to radio the meteorologist, who was always on duty, and say, "Hey, I'm going into the ice cap or the ice tunnels." Everyone was required to have one of these little tags with them at all times. So I had a buddy of mine make mine, and it said Water Tech, Bill Lindman. So I tried to go by Bill when I was down there. It didn't stick. What happened was the people that I was closest to ended up calling me Will anyways. Just like when I call myself William here, people start calling me Will. That's how I know if we're close or not. So here's a picture of my lab. Very, very small, considering the amount of water that I was pushing through there. I'd like to point out my jeans here. I only had one pair of jeans. I don't know why I didn't have more. Now, I had Carhartts, plenty of other warm weather gear. But for the most part, I was like, I'm just going to wear my jeans. I had, some Under Armour on underneath it, but they took a beating. So what's a water plant that doesn't have problems? Water freezes at 32 degrees. Sodium hypochlorite, which is the bleach solution, chlorine, that freezes at 23 degrees. So you can see here, there's a block of wood underneath it. One day I came down, I started doing my chlorine residuals, and my pump wasn't working properly. My chlorine residual was so far down. I was wondering what the heck's going on. So above it here, I have a 4-function valve. I'll talk about that in 1 second. And I was able to tell that I wasn't actually pumping any kind of liquid. What I found out was that my sodium hypochlorite was actually freezing. So I asked one of the carpenters if he would build me a little platform to bring it off the ground. Now imagine walking around on 23-degree floor for 8 hours a day.
Wow.
I quickly realized that, yeah, when you're working, you know, you're doing your thing, you have your feet on the ground, but when you're not working and you're in your seat, get your feet off the ground because there's no way to keep your feet warm. So that 4-function valve, it actually malfunctioned on us once. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of parts. You can't just call the USA Blue Book or Granger and get the parts delivered next day. So I took this thing apart. I found out what I needed and then reached out to my community and was like, hey, you know, I need this O-ring or else we're not going to be able to dose chlorine to disinfect our water. And it was awesome that we were able to come together, find an O-ring that fit, and get it working again. Another night, pressure relief valve failed. So the pressure relief valve, when it senses a certain pressure, it opens up. So what we're doing is we're pumping water from the water plant itself up into the station, right? And when it hits 70 PSI, the pump shuts off. That pressure switch malfunctioned. So the pump just kept on running and running and running. That pressure relief valve was set to go off at, let's say, 80 PSI, and it just started blowing water everywhere. I wasn't there at the time, but my coworker called me on the radio, and I ran down there, and we were quickly able to figure out that this switch had malfunctioned, and we need to switch to a different one. But it was a heck of a mess because the ground was 23 degrees, and there was so much water. So power plants have problems too. As I said, you know, I was there as a water operator, but I was also in the power plant. So I didn't have much experience working on cat diesel generators, but my coworker, Rosie, not my Rosie friend there, another one, you know, wonderful guy. He actually ended up being in my wedding, and he was like, hey, if you want to learn, I'll teach you. Like, well, I don't have anything else to do but read and watch movies, so I'll learn. But one night, I was sitting in the control room, and all of a sudden, I just heard this loud bang, and everything went dark. So I ran over to these controls, and I knew that there was a certain sequence to turn the backup generators on. We have 3 of these diesel cat generators. So I do the sequence, another one starts up, and it was like, all right, great, power comes up. Like, all right, cool. So I call my supervisor, Rosie, and I'm like, hey, something just happened. He's like, I'm on my way. He's running my direction. And then all of a sudden, I'm looking at the voltage, and our voltage is dropping. And we started browning out. You guys have heard of blackouts. We started browning out. And I'm like, Rosie, something's wrong. He's like, switch to the last one. So I do the next sequence, and I flip to our last generator. And luckily that one stayed. Well, it turns out when the other operator, I won't say his name, but you can come see this presentation. He didn't tighten down some of these springs to the proper torque, and the nuts actually let loose, and the springs blew up, and that was the loud bang I heard. So the next day, after we're doing our situational report with headquarters in Denver, my head supervisor was like, Will, what you did that night, he's like, you saved us big time. Like, that could have been very bad if you didn't know how to do that proper sequence of getting the generator started. Now remember that Rodriguez well requires constant circulation of water, right? When we don't have power, those pumps aren't working. So there's one guy, Eric Lund, I remember his name was. His job was, if there was ever a power outage, he ran straight to the pump house. And if we were to lose that pump house, if we were to lose that pipe because of freezing, we would have been melting snow until we can repair it. And repairing that would have taken months. So it was just kind of like the high stakes that we talk about, or that we think about here or there. It's weird to think about like the water main breaks that we have here in Manitowoc, or power outages, how, we're out of power for, a couple minutes. Manitowoc's great about that. We had 3 water main breaks last night alone. I was up pretty late last night responding to those. But yeah, at that point, it's nearly life and death. All right, so now life on base is what you guys are here for. My wife brought my our cat's laser pointer here. And now it's not going to work. I should have working on the screen. All right, so that's the main base. So you can kind of see these 4 little protrusions there. We'll start on the bottom left here. Both of those, there's 2 levels there. They're both going to be berthing units or dormitories, essentially. The same with the second one. The third one is going to have a commons area, and then there's a emergency shelter in case mud hits the fan. I'm trying not to use other words. There was a place there that we'd be able to hunker down and just stay there until we can actually get evacuated. The fourth side, or the fourth unit there, there was a gymnasium in there, a workout room. I have some pictures coming up here. So this first section here, that included the galley, which is on the second level. Below that, there was a sauna, there was a greenhouse, offices, more berthing units. The second unit over here, that consisted of a lot of offices, IT, and then a couple different like libraries and whatnot. Now, when we talked about being a winter rover, there were 48 of us that spent the winter there. During summer, roughly 250 people that spend summer there. The 48 of us are there to keep this station operational. This is bare bones. So if you were to take a city like Manitowoc and condense it into 48 people, that's what we had. So we had a water operator, we had 2 power plant operators, we had IT, we had firefighters, we had a doctor, we had a physician assistant, we had galley staff, plumbers, electricians. We were there to make sure that this place continued to run through the harsh winter. Now, when I talk about winter, it's very different from here because there's, well, even just life in general, there's one sunrise and there's one sunset the entire year. If you think about how the Earth rotates, Antarctica is down here in the bottom, and it's going in a very, very small circle. So when the sun is setting, it's just going in a circle around us, going down, 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 and then eventually it's dark, and that's it. Months and months later, the sun starts to rise, and just gradually you see some color coming up, and then eventually it's rising, and there it is. I will have some pictures coming up. Now, it's a very small group of people of us, 48 people, right? So I was actually the 1,000th 472nd person that spent a winter there in the world. That's a very, very small number of people if you look at the billions of people that have lived on our planet. I think the first time people spent a winter in the South Pole was like in the 50s with the Navy Seabees. So even since 1955, that's a very small number. So I feel very proud of my low number there compared to the billions of people that are on this earth and have been on this earth. So I have a lot of pictures coming up now. And now I just have to preface with a lot of these pictures are going to be selfies because I never thought I'd be given a presentation in a museum. I've given some of a similar presentation in Madison for the American Waterworks Association and the Wisconsin Dells for the similar organization. So a lot smaller, more technical focused. But all these pictures were taken to send back to my family and my friends. We'll start in the top left here. Behind me there is a airport hangar full of food. I do have another picture coming up later about that. On the top right there, that was my buddy James Oregano. He was a meteorologist, so he worked the midnight to noon shift. I was working the 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift. So many times it was just him and I were the only two people that were awake on station. So we spent so much time together. The bottom here, this is my buddy Mac. Mac worked with, it's called the Ice Cube. I'll get to that in a second. We were at a party that night, so that's why we look a little goofy there. And then this lower right picture, a group of people built an igloo, and we spent the night in it one night. So I had Mac and Christian. So Mac is from Canada. Christian is from Germany. They worked a lot of nights as well, occasionally, just because it was quiet. But they were scientists there. So we spent a lot of time together, and they were like, hey, let's go sleep in the igloo one night. So we went out there, and you can see we have a thermometer up there. It must have been negative 80 inside there. But you guys know those like those paint heaters, like, does that ring a bell with anyone? So it's just like this little heater gun that you can turn on high or low, and you can warm up or make paint dry faster. Or we use it at work for a lot of different like warming up tubes and whatnot. So we had two of those plugged in, which brought it down to like negative 60. So you can see we're heavily in gear there. And then we had the survival sleeping bags. I don't know. I'll just say it. So there was no bathroom in there. So we had a big thing, a ranch container that was empty, and everyone had to use that. But luckily it froze really quick, so it didn't stink. But yeah, so we had some cigars the night we slept in there, and then we were having some adult beverages as well. And at one point we were like, man, I wish we had some food. Like, man, that would be really great right now. And I'm like, what's in my pocket? I pulled out a full burrito. There were so many pockets on our jackets, I forgot I had a burrito in my pocket. Actually, one time when I was talking with my wife, we weren't married at the time, we were talking. I was like, man, it's just everywhere I go, it smells so sweet. I don't get it. I had an Oreo in my pocket here on my arm. I don't know how many weeks it had been there, but it just crumbled. And I eventually found this Oreo. I'm like, that makes sense of why everything smells so sweet when I have this jacket on. So one of the commons area that we spent a lot of time in was this one here. There was a pool table. We spent so much time playing pool. I mean, just ungodly amounts of time playing pool. You can see a bunch of books there on the shelf. That door there on the right, that led into one of our like mini theaters where there are hundreds of movies that you could watch. Yeah, a lot of time was spent there, especially with my buddy Oregano, because we got off work at 8 in the morning. Everyone else was heading to work. Well, him and I were at the end of our day, so we would head in there, have a couple drinks, play some pool, talk about life and whatnot, and then watch Packer games. When we had internet, because he was a huge Seahawks fan, and I was just giving him crap. So it's like, yeah, I'll root for the Packers. I didn't know I was coming to Manitowoc at the time. Quick little picture about our gymnasium. You can see the basketball hoop in there. We play volleyball, badminton. We had a couple different parties in there. We had rollerblades and oh my gosh, I just draw the blank. Sorry, skateboards. Gymnasium. I try to spend time in here, but I really hate running on treadmills. You were able to watch TV and whatnot, but yeah, a lot of people used it, just not me. I think I only ran like 20 miles the whole time I was there. So this is one of the theaters that we had. It was great because we had Xboxes, PlayStations, GameCubes. Behind here that you can't see, another wall of just movies. I think I watched every single HBO series possible. I watched so many movies. But then also I love playing Xbox. That was one of my pastimes. So it was really fun to just, at the end of the day, when everyone else was going to work, I had this theater to myself. Now, another thing that we would do in this room, every week someone would give a presentation on their travels or whatnot. So I gave a presentation once on my time in Uganda there. And then there was also a group of us that watched the series Game of Thrones. We have a lot of people that are familiar with that. Yeah, there's an awkward situation there, but yeah. Do you want to hear it or no?
Yeah.
All right, so there were about a dozen of us guys watching Game of Thrones, and Game of Thrones, it's an adult show, but there's a lot of scenes where there's some adult content, nudity, and scenes. But one night there were a dozen of us watching this show, and there was a very adult scene going on, and my coworker Robert walked in. And he just like froze, and we all turned around and looked at him. And he was like, "What's going on in here?" Like, Robert, just don't worry, it's Game of Thrones. So, and he just turned around and walked away. So yeah, some more pictures that I was sharing with friends and family. So I love this picture of the moon because I took this with a camera that was from like the early 2000s. And I really spent a lot of time alone thinking about things. And there was this one idea that I had, this theory, triangulation. I don't know if it's a real theory, but it's a theory I made up. But it was really cool to hear like my parents or my friends talk about like, oh yeah, the moon's full tonight. I'm like, dude, I can see the moon right now. And to me, it kind of like brought home that, we're both seeing that same moon. And it helped me stay closer. But yeah, there was one night where I've never seen the moon this big. Like we've all seen it come over the horizon on the lake there. It's just like, wow, that's amazing. That night, I could not believe. I swear you could probably see where we landed. I made this patch with my buddy Oregano. I don't know what that would actually be called when you make your own embroidery or something. I don't know. He figured out this program and then taught me how to use it. We had a lot of spare time. Down here, this was right before I left, hiking near McMurdo Station. It was like negative 30, negative 40 at the time. And you could tell I'm just wearing like a wind jacket, had shorts on. It was such a dry cold. I swear it was dry cold. Another picture here. This is my buddy Rosie that I mentioned earlier, and my friend Josh. There's one day we were talking at breakfast, and they're like, man, you know what would be really good right now? If we had some Bloody Marys. I'm like, dude, I got some bacon in my room. Like, what, you have bacon? I'm like, yeah, man, let me just go get my coat. It's like, that's where you keep food. So I ran to my room, got bacon. Josh went and stole cheese from the kitchen. Rosie had the vodka, and then we were able to buy some tomato juice. So the three of us made ourselves some Bloody Marys. It wasn't that great, not like you can get around here. So there was a little green room or greenhouse, very, very small, but it was really cool that the chefs were able to incorporate some of these, what they called freshies. I didn't like that term, but it was nice to have some green food occasionally. But I would go in there and take naps. Like, I would just take a book in there, 5 minutes in, I'm out. And then like 2 hours later, it was just so easy to breathe. It just kind of rejuvenated my soul. So I really wanted to point out, like, that was like one of my favorite places to go. So here we are at the geographical South Pole. Now the geographical South Pole will actually move every year, just a matter of inches or feet. And every year they replace the actual monument piece. The machinist that would be on station, he would actually build or fabricate one every year just for that station. So this is me when I first got there, huge smile. I had to rep KRCU, that was the public radio station in my hometown of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. And my best friend Alex worked there, and he had that flag made for me. So he's like, hey, take that down there and take a picture with it. So now this is the ceremonial South Pole. This is the one that if you Google it, you'll see this that sphere, the chrome sphere, and a bunch of flags around it. Another KRCU picture. Now these flags are replaced every year. So at the end of the winter, they take the flags down, and then you get like 2 tickets, and you can put your tickets in a bucket to draw to get one of those flags. Unfortunately, I didn't win any. So this picture was taken on January 31st of 2016, which was my birthday. I went and stood on top of the station, and I just thought it was really cool to just look out into that void with the moon kind of on the horizon. It was amazing to stand on top of the station and just know that everywhere you look is a different part of the world. Like, Africa's right there, South America is here, Australia is here, all in a circle. So you have all those time zones that you're just going in a circle with. It was really hard to fathom, but it really brought the idea of the world into perspective. The galley, this place, I spent a lot of time. We did a lot of trivia in here. So one of my favorite stories here was in the very beginning, every other Friday, we would have a prime rib night. And I mean, we had these cuts of meat that were just absolutely huge. And if you were friends with the chef, then he would let you pick how big of a piece you wanted. So I didn't know the chef the first night, and I went and got, just a good cut. And I'm sitting there eating. I don't really know that many people yet. We're all getting to know each other. And I see all these people, they're cutting around the fat. They're not eating the fat. So I'm like, hey, can I have your fat? They're like, you're gonna eat that? I'm like, yeah, why are you eating prime rib without eating your fat? So they gave me all this fat, and then all of a sudden the chef walks up to me. He's like, what's your name? Bill. You and I are gonna be friends from now on. You have full access to this kitchen. Whatever you want, you're gonna get it. I respect you now. Like, all right, sweet. So from then on those prime rib nights, I was getting cuts of meat, that big. It was just absolutely awesome. I would typically, as I said, I worked like kind of the night shift. So I get done at 6, 8 in the morning. I would come up and there was like a little group of us that would eat breakfast. Now, you're only rationed to have 2 eggs a day. So you would talk to the chef beforehand to be like, yeah, I want mine scrambled, or I want mine hard boiled, or you get there and have them cook them over easy. So there were 3 chefs, and they stayed, the one that cooked breakfast stayed breakfast the entire time, and then lunch and dinner. So I spent a lot of time in the breakfast area because I was awake at the time. I usually slept through lunch, and then if dinner was good, then I would actually wake up and get that. Yeah, so prime rib night, pizza night. Those are the main ones that I'd actually wake up for. It's weird to wake up to actually eat food. But then there were a lot of leftovers. So I ate so many ramen noodles, or, just reheating some of the food that they had. So this is what a typical dorm would look like, or berthing unit. Now, this wasn't mine, but it was the exact same one. So, you have your armoire, I can never say that word, and your desk and your bed. I spent so many hours watching TV, just like in a portable DVD player, reading books, and then I was able to call people whenever the internet was actually available. But yeah, not a lot of time hanging out in there. Now, during the nighttime, there wasn't allowed any light pollution. So all of our windows were actually boarded up throughout the entire station. So when you're in there, that room is very small, and you really just want to be in there to sleep. So this is our group photo. Every winter over group takes their photo, and we were on standby for when the auroras were going to be out. So I'm down here. I think that's a majority of the people that were in the station. Yeah, so the 90 degrees south, referencing our latitude. Yeah. Now, one of the interesting things about this photo, I'm going to zoom into myself here. After the photo was taken, the doctor came up to me. He was like, "Hey, Bill, is your nose okay?" I'm like, "Why?" It's like, "Well, I zoomed into the picture and your nose is white." So that white there that you see on my nose is not a camera flash or anything. My nose was actually turning white. It was so painful. If you can imagine like a razor, just someone going like this on your nose. Sorry if that's too graphic. I was smiling, but I was holding it in. Now you can see my other coworker up there. He doesn't have his nose covered, much like everyone else. He's from Ishpeming, Michigan. Yeah. So yeah, he was a little bit used to the cold. So this was one of the sunset pictures I took. You can see in the middle of the photo here, there's a bunch of flags. Now that goes out to, I believe that was the South Pole Telescope. I was kind of referencing earlier how the globe is spinning and we're stuck in it. Not stuck in it. Yeah, we're stuck in Antarctica. Well, if you're looking, this is the only place in the world that you can continuously look into one part of our universe. Everywhere else, we're just going around in a circle and you're seeing all this around. This is the one place in the world that they can just continually look deeper and deeper into space. So there are lots of different group activities, trying to keep ourselves sane. One night we did a tie-dye night. We had a lot of different parties. For the winter solstice, there was or midwinter, there was this huge gala where we all dressed up in our finest clothes. And you find I had a collared shirt on with my jeans. Scavenger hunts, trivia nights, and then lots of just different random parties. Just try, if you had an idea that you wanted to do, present it, and the group would get behind you. So this photo is courtesy of Robert Schwartz. He was one of the South Pole Telescope technicians, and he had been coming back there for 20 something years, he had the equipment and the knowledge to set up all these cameras and do all the time lapses and whatnot. So when we talk about auroras, we all know about the aurora australis up here in the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, it's called aurora australis. Now, we would see these on a daily basis. If you went outside, you would see it. It was so common. I feel terrible saying this. I took it for granted. I would go outside every single day, and I'd look at it and just be like, "Oh yeah, there's some nice auroras today. All right, cool." And go back inside. Where now it'd be like, I'd love to see them again. And I tried to, refocus and take that in, but I think it was natural that we all took that for granted. So here's another picture of the South Pole Telescope. Now this was on the sunrise. This must have been one of the times that Heidi and I were talking, and I was like, I just shed a tear. I saw the sun for the first time in 8 months. So yeah, I went out and took a picture. Now those flags that I just mentioned, this is a better picture of them. The flags are there so you don't get lost. Now it seems like, oh yeah, I'll walk in a straight line, but when it's negative 70, 80, 90, the wind's blowing, you can barely see anything. You have to use those. Flags to actually get to your locations. Here's a better picture of our food storage area. Now this is, 50 feet underground or whatnot. There's food in there that would be able to last us for years in case something were to happen up here or whatnot. In fact, for that gala that we have in midwinter, the chefs would find the finest food that they could get. One of them was a duck from 1987. I was born in 1987. They told me that they found a can of coffee beans that had the U.S. Dream Team on it from '92, I believe it was, with Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan. So much food, and they were able to keep the food somewhat different, so we're not eating the same bland food every single day. So this is our craft room. A lot of creativity going on there. This is where I did a lot of my sewing. And then we were able to do those embroidery patches and whatnot. So this is the Ice Cube Neutrino Observatory. Leo has some experience with it. If you'd like to come up and talk about it. This is way above what I understand. So we talked about it earlier.
Yeah.
He said that he would be able to talk about it a bit.
Yeah. So this is an observatory located at the South Pole Station, or not at the South Pole Station, but pretty near the South Pole Station. And it's not a typical observatory. It actually observes invisible particles called neutrinos. So they interact only weakly with matter, so they don't interact very often. But when they do, we can see them. This observatory has strings that go down miles into the ice. There are 86 strings in total with what they call photomultiplier tubes. And all that means is they can pick up very, very faint radiation. So when these massless particles called neutrinos interact very weakly in the ice, every once in a while they'll catch and they'll spark kind of a shower of other charged particles that these strings, these photomultiplier tubes, can pick up in the ice. So the observatory itself is actually below this station. It's all underneath the ice, in the ice. And it's pretty fascinating because then they can track back the direction that this neutrino came into the ice and track it into the sky and see roughly where it came from. And most of the neutrinos that this observatory observes come from very violent astrophysical explosions, some of them as old as the universe is itself. So it's pretty fascinating stuff. If you guys are interested, I did their social media in my undergrad. So if you guys are interested, I can tell you more about it afterwards.
Thank you. yeah, I could not have done any better than that. I just knew there was a huge cube and that there were neutrinos and they were very small, and you can trace it back to the origins of the universe. So in 2016, while I was there was a rescue flight that came in. Remember I was talking about the medical evaluation that I had to go through? Well, it just so happened that something happened to one of my colleagues, and I don't know what. I have a suspicion that I won't say, but she got sick, and it was determined that she needed to get out of the South Pole as soon as possible. So what happened was a plane from Canada flew all the way down through the Americas, went into Palmer Station, which is on the peninsula of Antarctica. They outfitted the Basler plane with skis, and then when the weather was right, they flew from Palmer Station into the South Pole. Now remember, this is in complete darkness, super freezing temperatures, and we didn't have lights outside, so we had to take oil drums and fill it with wood from pallets and diesel fuel, and a runway was kind of created in the middle of winter utilizing all that. So she was evacuated, and then there was another person that had a medical situation, but he was getting by with some medication, but we were running low on medication. And then another person, my buddy Rosie, he won't care if I tell you this, he had like a minor heart attack. So he was taking some nitroglycerin. If you knew the guy, you would understand. You tone it down, Rosie. This guy's 110 miles an hour. So we were running out of nitroglycerin, and we needed to get this woman out. So that's when the decision was made that they're going to evacuate her and then take this other gentleman that had a medical condition out. It was really interesting because everything was focused on these pilots, like in this flight, just like for days, getting everything ready, making sure the generators were working. We had, the most nutritious food available. We had the beds made for the pilots. So when they landed, they came straight in, got a hot meal, and then went straight to bed, slept for 8 hours, and then left again. So yeah, it was really interesting because this was the first time it's ever been done. My water bottle here, I have the first midwinter flight, South Pole Station, 2016. So that was a unique experience to be a part of it. It was really weird to see another person other than the other 47 people that were there walking through the hall. It was like alien-like. I wanted to share just 2 quick stories on some of the times that I was scared while I was there. I talked about those flags, right? So one day I went out to gather some water from the South Pole that I could melt, and I was going to take this back home with me. Well, I didn't have the proper gear on, and I didn't have my eye protection on. And as I was out there, my eyes started to water, and then all of a sudden my right eye froze shut. And then I could feel my left eye freezing. So I started running back to the station. I knew the direction because it wasn't far away, but that's what you think when it's dark out and everything's white around you and whatnot. So I made it back into the station, and I was just like, that was a close one. I won't tell my parents about that or the medical staff. The other situation where this one was really scary, we had a cryogenics facility where they were taking core drill samples of the ice and shipping them off and whatnot. Well, there was this low oxygen alarm that would go off occasionally. When it would go off, it was all hands on deck, because if someone was in there with no oxygen, this is a rescue mission then. That alarm went off at 3 o'clock in the morning or so. As I said, the meteorologist and I were the only 2 people that were up at that time. So I ran out there. I put on my gear that I had. I ran out there, and I got on the radio. I'm like, hey, I'm here. No one has their tag out, so I'm not sure if anyone's in there. So our station manager was like, all right, well, Bill, you're going to be the response officer or whatever. Wait there until the firefighters get there. Like, okay, it's kind of cold. So I'm waiting and waiting. So these guys, they're trying to get their full firefighters gear on, like their sub-zero firefighter gear on. And it's taking so long. And I'm like, hey, are you guys coming out? I need to get inside. And eventually they got there. And I was like, Ethan, I got to go. And I ran back down into one of the hangars. But now I needed to get into the power plant itself. And my fingers were frozen and I couldn't grip. So there was just like a plank essentially. And I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? And I was like trying to figure out like how I can't get my hand in here. I was running around. I found a piece of wood from those pallets and I was able to go in and it was like a deep lock freezer. So I was able to like grab it and position it and then open it. And I ran inside. And then I ran up to the generator and I just sat there in front of the generator where this warm air would blow. And then I just was like breaking down into tears like that when you can't feel it, when you're cold, when you're so cold and then you introduce the heat, all of a sudden you get that pain. And I was just crying, like getting feeling back into my fingers and my hands. So I was like really scared that night because I almost had to run back outside to get someone to put me back into the station. So yeah, one of the, this is a picture of right after I got there. I really like the picture because you can see the power plant exhaust right behind me. I have a smile on my face. That hat there, the Burton hat, I actually forgot a sock cap. I went down there without a sock cap. And luckily there was people leave a lot of gear, so I was able to get a hat. So that was the one I chose. This was the day I left. I wanted to spend as much time possible outside because the plane was getting ready to leave, and I was like, this is going to be the last time in my life I'm ever going to be here. And I just went and sat, and I just looked off into the distance. That gray cap is the same one. You can see one of the patches that I embroidered and put on there. And yeah, I wasn't really shaving at all. In fact, in efforts to conserve water, you are only allowed to have two-minute showers a week. So what a lot of people would do is take 1 4-minute shower a week, or you just don't shower. But now it was so dry that it's not like you were sweating or anything. People didn't smell. So I typically wouldn't shower for a while, but then I would maintain my beard. I'd wash it in the sink down at work, and then I would go sit next to the generator where it blows the hot air. I just brush out my beard, so that's why my beard always looks majestic. So this was right before I was leaving. Here's the airport at the South Pole Station, PAX. The U.S. Air Force they were the ones that were flying us around. This is like a New York National Guard unit flying in these C-130s. Actually, I got to fly from McMurdo Station to Christchurch in Mitt Romney's C-130. That one was nice. It was jet powered instead of propellers. Yeah, it made the trip like half the time. Pretty cool. Now, one of my proud accomplishments here is that for completing my time at the South Pole, I was awarded this medal from the United States Antarctic Research Program. Now, this is one of the very few medals that the U.S. military can wear and a civilian can have. I think it's probably the only one. So I also got this wintered over pin that went with it. I think it's really funny that when I brought this home, my mom and I were like, oh yeah, we'll make this little thing for it. We're like, well, what's this? What should we put behind the medal itself? So we're looking through like the scrap stuff at Hobby Lobby or whatnot. And then I find this little frozen, piece of paper. Little did I know that I'd have a daughter later that loved Elsa and everything Frozen. All right, so earlier I told you about how my babysitter, my friend Erica, was someone that influenced me heavily, right? Like a decision that she made, that someone influenced her to become a Peace Corps volunteer, influenced me. And that really shaped my life, right? So I have a second little story for you. Now, when I was down there, I had internet access occasionally. If you think about how the satellites orbit Earth, they're all going around, the equator essentially, going one direction. There's 3 satellites that go from north to south. These are controlled by NASA and the US Air Force. So when they were in our area, in the Southern Hemisphere, we were able to connect to the internet. And there was this one NASA satellite called SPT. It had the fastest internet. And it was only available from like midnight to 2 a.m. when myself and Oregano were working. So I had the fastest internet. While I was down there, I'm like, well, what's next? I can go wherever I want in the world. I can go wherever I want in the United States. So I started looking around. And I'm like, all right, well, do I want to go to Florida? That sounds cool. Well, I kind of like the Appalachia area, like to ride motorcycles. All right, what about like Washington or Oregon? That's a really cool area. I'm not going to California. I'm not going to Illinois. I'm not going back to Missouri. I saw a head cock over there. Was that but then I was like, well, wait a minute. What about Wisconsin? Like, this is a place, my parents grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. I visited many times before, riding motorcycles, going skiing. I'm like, Wisconsin seems like a cool place to go. So I started looking at jobs, and I had a really promising job up in Antigo. Not knowing anything about Wisconsin, I'm like, Antigo, yeah, man, that northern Wisconsin, that looks cool. I'm for that. Now, what I was also doing while I was applying for jobs was I was changing my dating profile to match like where I was applying for jobs. So I found, eventually I met this girl, and I wrote her this awesome introductory email instead of just the hey or hi or hey cutie. I had time on my hands. I can write when I have time. So I wrote her this really nice email, and it turns out she's from West Bend, but she was in England at the time. She was going to be moving back to Wisconsin around the same time that I was going to be coming here. So we emailed each other, talked on the phone occasionally for a couple months. So when we finally got to meet each other, oh wait, no, I forgot. Forgot about Manitowoc. So we're talking and everything, and then all of a sudden I find this job at MPU. I remember walking in the lab up to a map of the US. I see Manitowoc and I see where West Bend is. I'm like, whoa, that's pretty close. That's a lot closer than Antigo. But then as I was reading about the job, I was like, man, this is really cool. Like, my position would be working in the water plants in maintenance. It'd be working in operations. It'd be working in distribution. Whereas like 99% of water plants, you're either one of those positions or that's it. And people don't know about those others. But Manitowoc was unique, and that really stuck out to me. So I applied for a job. That's kind of where the second story goes. I was applying for all these jobs, and Antigo reached out to me. Lacrosse, it was Lacrosse, just ghosted me. All these other places ghosted me. But one individual, Rob Michelson, actually took a chance on me. I think a lot of people thought I was just making up this resume thing. But Rob was like, oh, this is interesting. I've never seen South Pole. So yeah, he bit. And we started talking. And eventually I was like, hey, I'm coming back this week sometime. he's like, come back or come up here. Let's meet in person and, just make sure you're a good fit for our team. And yeah, we can go from there. So I like to think about Rob's decision there. He's looked at so many applications throughout his entire career, and he saw mine, which so many people passed up, which I thought was a really good resume. But he looked at it and took a chance on me. And I'm like, I really appreciate that. And he wasn't able to make it tonight. And I told him this before, but his decision to take a chance on me has totally changed my life. Now I'm going to add a little bit more to that story just in his hat. But a lot of you saw that interview on NBC 26 a couple weeks ago. One of the questions that Abby brought up was similarities between the South Pole and here. There's actually quite a few. The sound of walking on ice. So in preparation of my presentation tonight, I was like, I'm walking. So I put on my backpack and I walked and I just listened to the sound again. And that sound that kind of like gives you a little tingle up your spine. Like sometimes it bothers me, but I swear I heard that so much and I hear that here. So when I hear that sound, it reminds me of Antarctica. Snow shoveling. Now, being part of that station, we had different groups, and each group had a certain area that they had to clean each week. Well, one of the activities was snow shoveling the fire exits. And I remember sitting like out there shoveling. I'm like, I'm on 9,000 feet of ice right now. What am I shoveling for? Like, the wind's just going to blow this ice back. And I was like, I'm never shoveling ice again in my life. And that's why I started looking in Boca Raton, Florida originally. So here I am snow shoveling again. Especially because whenever it snows here, my parents happen to leave right before that. Winters. There's been a couple times, being in the water utility, alarms happen, water main breaks happen in the middle of the night. There was one night we had a communication failure out at the Northwest Water Tower out there on Basswood. And there was so much snow I couldn't drive out there, and I had to park the truck and walk the rest of the distance. And I'm carrying this uninterruptible power supply because I suspected that was the issue. And I remember just like walking and like, just having everything covering my face and the wind blowing. And I'm like, this is exactly how I walked at the South Pole. Just hearing that crunch, shielding yourself from the wind. Another time there's this huge water main break over at the viaduct on Waldo. Huge storm last year. I think it was in February. And I'm out there operating these valves in the middle of that field that's going to be the cemetery, kind of. The new cemetery eventually. And the wind was it was blowing sideways. The snow was going sideways. And I'm out there operating this, but I have to go super slow. It takes me 20 minutes to operate a valve. And the whole time I'm just thinking like, wow, this feels like Antarctica again. The view of the lake. One of my favorite things about Manitowoc is the lake. When I was looking for jobs and then Manitowoc popped up, I went all through Manitowoc on Google Maps. I was like, man, this place is cool. It has a river, it has the lake, Door County's close by, Green Bay's close by, Sheboygan, Milwaukee, they're all close by, but they're their own thing. Manitowoc is its own thing, its own community. I'm like, that looks like a cool place. Like, yeah, I think this is going to work. Now, this morning, it was really cool driving into work. When it's so cold and you get that like wall out there, that reminds me of Antarctica. I love whenever I can be on the beach and not see anything except for that wall. You can really get it up in Door County occasionally, like at the Fish Creek Winter Festival, where it's just everything's frozen over. So that really, really reminds me of Manitowoc, South Pole. So Rob took that chance on me. I ended up asking Heidi to marry me. I asked her actually right out in front of the lighthouse, the blue rail. I also met my friend Steph right there at the exact same spot. Ran into her and her husband. She was wearing a Peace Corps shirt. And I'm like, oh, my introverted self is like, I don't want to say anything, but I'm like, she's Peace Corps. I have to say something. So yeah, we were engaged in April of 17, I believe. April of 17. We got married in August. And then now we have Lily and Kai. Do you want to wave? My parents loved it so much that they retired from Missouri. They live on the exact same block as us, just 5 houses up. They're here in the front row. I guess that concludes my presentation. So I do have one more thing I want to say after questions. So just be mindful of that. Real quick, one question I know you brought up earlier. Temperatures. All right, so the warmest I felt, remember that picture I showed you with my beard all frozen? It was negative 36 that day. I was wearing blue jeans and my big red jacket because I had to have that on. But it was negative 36 and it was like, this is the warmest I felt. Great, cool. The average temperature was negative 78. And the coldest I felt was negative 107 with a wind chill of negative 180. And I went outside every single day just to remind myself that I wasn't stuck in this building. I'm outside. Yeah, it's okay. Questions?
Yeah. Since most of your time there was in the dark, right? Did, people get that seasonal affective disorder and things. How did you guys keep your spirits up, keep from getting the blues? How did you get your, that you didn't go crazy
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, so the question, if you guys couldn't hear, was referencing like us living in the darkness for so long, and how do we manage mentally and physically. There were a lot of vitamins taken. I didn't take any vitamins. I know a lot of people did. Going in that greenhouse was huge. A lot of people spent time in there. Going in the sauna, that was a big thing. And then trying to have all those little parties, gatherings, those friendships. I think that's what kept a lot of people sane. I remember a couple times, like on weekends, it was pretty quiet and we had like limited staff that were working. There was one time my buddy Rosie came in and he was like, I started talking to him and he was like, Will, have you talked to another person since Friday? I'm like, no, I haven't seen another person. I can tell. Yeah, Dan.
2 questions. You were talking about working shifts. What time zone were you living in? And now that your presentation is done, are you going to use the chops?
Thank you.
I think they look good.
Thank you. Yeah, so we were technically on Zulu time, which is like the first time zone. So that was really difficult to like manage figuring out when I'm going to interview with Rob Michelson and be like, all right, listen, I'm going to call you on, this time zone at this time. And it was so hard to figure out, but yeah, I think we managed it all right. And then, I had to cut the chops off before Christmas pictures. Rosie.
Well, I know when you came home, we were getting ready to go. Okay. Is there other people that do multiple full year tours?
Yeah, so Rosie there was asking about, people going back. That Robert Schwartz guy that I mentioned, he had been there 20 years. The thing is that you're technically working in New Zealand. I had a New Zealand passport or stamp. So you have to leave and then leave New Zealand for 3 months before you can come back to Antarctica. So yeah, if you spend like a year there, you do the winter and the summer, then you are stuck until the next winter. But yeah, there were quite a few people that went back again and again. I had an offer to go back, but you know, my opportunity here in Manitowoc, I was like, I don't want to pass this up. It just, I felt like I missed an entire year of my life with kids getting, you know, friends having kids, my friends getting married, just all the festivities and whatnot. I was ready to come back stateside.
Besides penguins, what lives in Antarctica?
So, yeah, I only saw penguins once, and that was in McMurdo Station, because the plane that Mitt Romney's plane, they were coming into land, and there were penguins on the runway, so they had to abort the landing and go chase the penguins off. But there were a lot of birds. Skua, I think, is the main bird that was there. They're kind of like a seagull, I believe. And then, yeah, a lot of different seals, sea lions, killer whales. Yeah, I didn't get to see any of those except for those penguins.
No one had any kind of pet.
No, that was discussed about having pets down there. It was actually, you're not allowed to bring animals onto the station, but they're more concerned about people fighting over it. Like, oh, if you have some cats on station, oh, well, you know, Fluffy likes me more than you. That's what I heard. And Jared.
I heard you joined a special club down there.
That's my buddy Jared back there. All right, so the question or the statement was, he heard I was in a special club. Yes, I'm part of a very unique club. That's even smaller than that 1472 number. So there's a thing called the 300 Club. The 300 Club is you sit in a sauna at 200 degrees Fahrenheit for like 45 minutes for an hour to an hour. It's very, very difficult to do. But then you walk outside when it's negative 100 and you get your picture taken in front of the ceremonial South Pole. But you do this completely naked. And it's all supervised by medical staff. But yeah, you have a 300-degree temperature change in seconds. So very, very small group of people. I did it twice in one night. I did a supervised one, and then I was with my buddy Mac and Christian, and there was some liquid courage involved, and we did it. And it was one of the coolest experiences, like just to be out there, and I was by myself. The auroras were so beautiful that night, and I'm just standing there completely naked, like just in awe.
Aren't you worried about it freezing?
No, your body is so warm that it's almost like a sheen of ice forms on you. Yeah. Yeah, Troy. All right.
Can you talk about Eagle Scout preparing for this? Number 2, have you seen John Carpenter's The Thing before you went?
Yeah, nice. Yeah, so being an Eagle Scout, that was very transformative in my life. That actually is the reason why I went to Lindenwood University. They offered a scholarship that was huge back in the early 2000s. So I've always been a huge proponent of the Boy Scout program, as Troy kind of knows. But I look forward to Kai and Lily being in the program someday. But I feel that those experiences definitely helped me throughout my time in Peace Corps as well, and life in general. I had seen The Thing beforehand. I think, I watched it right before I left with my buddy Alex. And then there is the night that the last plane leaves, that they put it up on a projector screen and everyone watches it. Yeah. All right, so I have one final story. I said I was going to say 3 stories. So I referenced Erica, the babysitter that influenced me so much and then I mentioned Rob that took a chance on me. The third story is going to be about you all. Now, remember that quote I said in the beginning about how you meet someone and you're either going to be changing their lives or you have the opportunity to change theirs? I want you guys to go home with that. I want you to know that you have the opportunities to change someone's lives, no matter how small or big it is. That opportunity is yours. I like to think about like the kids that are selling lemonade or cookies or whatnot, being able to go up to them and just give them like an encouraging word of advice. You know, give them $5, take the lemonade or not, but say something to them, influence them. We have that opportunity, and I want to encourage you all to take that from this. As I mentioned, Erica, Rob, those people changed my life. And now I have this wonderful family. I have all these wonderful friends that joined listening to us tonight, or listening to me tonight. So yeah, I'd just like to encourage you all to be that person, take that opportunity, be that inspiration, and thank you so much for listening.
One more quick question.
Yeah.
When you got back here and started working, have you ever had somebody local complain about how cold it is, and then you can go, listen?
Yeah. I mean, there's times I complain about it too. Yeah.
All right. Here, I'll take that back from you. Thank you so much.
I didn't talk too long.
No, that was perfect. That was incredible. Thank
having
you
a
so
good time.
much. Yeah, that was incredible.
Nice job.
Thank you.
I was down there on an expedition ship.
Really?
I was really intrigued with the Shackleton, the Endurance expedition. And we were just really lucky. I was able to do a lot of the things, retrace a lot of the steps that we got to Elephant Island, South Georgia.